everyone, Heather here with PersephoneReturns.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. This one is for Monday, July 2nd through Sunday, July 8th of 2018. And thank you so much for sticking with me and for watching this video. I was gone for a couple of weeks. We were vacationing and traveling all over the place. I knew I said that I would take you guys on the road with me, but unfortunately it proved to be a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be while traveling and camping for 3 weeks to find the right space and to have enough time in Wi-Fi in order to upload the videos and all of these things. So I decided to take a little break. But I'm back and we just got home last night and I want to do this forecast for you. I am nowhere exciting today. I'm actually in my backyard. But I'm planning to do some videos in some better locations later this week. And so this week we have a little bit going on. It's not as crazy as last week. I did miss the Mars retrograde, so I will talk about that a little bit before we get into the forecast for the week. But in general, this week is going to be pretty mild and pretty calm. It's sort of like the calm before the storm. And I say that because next week we officially move into eclipse season with the partial solar eclipse in the sign of Cancer, which is going to be happening at 20 degrees Cancer next week. And so this is a new moon, this is a solar eclipse, and this ushers us into eclipse season. And I'm going to have plenty of coverage for you for that coming into next week, so you can kind of look out for that. But in the meantime, everything that's going on this week is a little bit more subtle. There is going to be a Mercury opposition to Mars this week, though, and that's going to be highlighting the Mars retrograde energy. And the Mars retrograde energy is a very interesting one. It happens once about every 2 years, and Mars does not really like to be in retrograde. Mars likes to be moving forward. Mars is a very fast-moving, willful, sort of direct planet, right? And so when Mars is in retrograde, it's not the best time to initiate new action. It's not the best time to be pushing forward. If there's something that you're moving into or that you're trying to accomplish when Mars is in retrograde and it's not really working out for you, if you find yourself really pushing and pushing and pushing and coming up against all of this resistance, all these blockages, all of these walls, that is a sign that this is not a thing for you to be doing right now. Mars retrograde is a better time to learn to put the brakes on things. It's a time to learn to slow down, take time out, to contemplate, to play things out in your head before you actually take action, to sort of rehearse things in your mind and in your imagination prior to moving forward. A lot of times when you have Mars in retrograde, if you jump into something impulsively, if you initiate new action, it's going to sort of fizzle out or it won't work out right, and you're going to have to kind of take a step back like, whoa, I jumped into that, what did I just do? Mars retrograde people in general tend to learn by doing. They have a sort of incorrect sense of timing when it comes to when to take action. And so Mars retrograde people, and I know this because I have this in my own chart, they tend to either hesitate and wait too long to take action because they're sort of rehearsing it and internalizing that action instead of actually taking that action and playing it out, or they just jump in all crazy and then it's like, what did I just do? Oh no. And then you have to kind of backtrack, right? So that's sort of the energy when Mars is in retrograde. In general, people are going to be either hesitating a lot more, acting a little bit more passively, especially people who tend to be more strong-willed. So you'll find people that are Aries or Aries rising or Scorpio and Scorpio rising, because these are the two Mars-ruled signs. You're going to find that people who have a lot of strong Aries or Scorpio in their charts, they're going to be a little bit more passive, a little bit more calm, a little bit more contemplative, and a little bit more indirect. This can also bring up passive aggressiveness in a lot of people as well. And that's actually one way that this energy can be expressed a little bit more easily, right? Because you'll find that people will be internalizing anger and then they'll just be exploding all over the place when Mars is in retrograde, because Mars is so strong right now. Mars is like 3 times closer to the Earth. You might have noticed at moonrise over these past few days that Mars has been really bright and really strong in the skies, and so you'll see that little red planet, that little red dot in the sky rising just a little while after the moon rises, at this time right now. And so it's really bright in the sky because it's really strong, it's really close to Earth. And so when Mars is really strong in the skies, people feel the need to take really decisive, really quick action, and people will be acting more impulsively, especially with Mars in the sign of Aquarius. But I would advise most people, I'd really have to look at your chart to know, because if you're a natal Mars retrograde person, this is your time. Things just feel right. They just sort of start to work out for you. You know when to act and what to do because this is your natal energy, right? It's kind of like Mercury retrograde people. They tend to do better during the Mercury retrogrades. Or if you're somebody who tends to be a little bit more passive, if you have an afflicted Mars in your chart, if you tend to be more weak-willed, if you tend to be more I don't want to say, well, if you tend to be someone who doesn't take action and doesn't want to take the initiative normally, you might find yourself taking more action and initiative during the Mars retrograde, because it's essentially a reversal of your normal state of acting on your will, or acting on your anger and those angry, aggressive impulses as well. So if you're someone who tends to bottle things up, you might find angry sort of outbursts coming up for you, where it just comes out of nowhere and you didn't even know you were holding on to that anger, and it just shows up all at once, right? That's one of the manifestations of the Mars retrograde energy that can come up for a lot of people. And if you're somebody who tends to just follow along with what other people are doing, you don't take the initiative, you don't act on your willpower, you hesitate, this is a time when you can take action more quickly and more decisively. And this week we're going to be having actually Mercury in opposition to Mars. Mercury right now is in the sign of Leo, which is a really great place for Mercury. People tend to express themselves through their language a little bit more dramatically and over the top, and stories can become a lot more colorful. People can exaggerate, they can be more boastful with this energy, but it's also a more playful energy of Mercury. So conversations become more lighthearted, more playful, more enjoyable under this influence. And so Mercury right now is in the sign of Leo. It's going to be making an opposition to Mars, and that can cause us to act very impulsively. This is very quick decision making. It makes our minds really sharp, but we're thinking very fast, and we're speaking very quickly, and this is one of those energies where you might be putting your foot in your mouth because you just say something as soon as you think it, and it can come across as quite harsh, blunt, abrasive, and so just be very mindful of your speech and the actions that you take. This isn't a time to act impulsively in general with Mars being in retrograde, but I feel like this week, especially as we come into the middle to end of this week, because this comes exact on Thursday, I really feel like people are just going to be saying things, blurting things out, acting all impulsively, and then they're going to have to go back and like apologize or take it back or fix the mess that they made. So don't be one of those people, right? So think very carefully about what you're going to be saying to people before you say it this week. Don't just react, because people are going to be much more reactionary instead of responsive when they receive messages that rub them the wrong way. And you could be one of those people as well. So if you get a message, or you're on the receiving end of that blunt, abrasive sort of communication that sort of comes out of nowhere and it can be hurtful, take a step back and just think about things before you react, right? Allow yourself time to respond, because this can be a very intense energy for conflict and for arguments. And so you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're saying things that you don't mean because they said something impulsively, and then it just turns into a big spiral, right? And so this is a week to sort of think before you speak, think before you act. Don't act impulsively. Don't initiate anything new unless you have to during a Mars retrograde. A lot of times things that start during Mars retrograde, they tend to fizzle out quite easily unless you are a natal Mars retrograde person. And so those are all things to be mindful of. We do have some really nice aspects going on though with the sun this week. The sun is actually triggering that Jupiter-Neptune trine that has been going on really all year. It came exact a little over a month ago, and it's still really close. And so that energy is still pretty strong in the skies, and the sun right now is triggering it. So it's going to be making a trine to Jupiter on Thursday, the same day as the Mercury-Mars opposition. And so this is going to be a really great energy that's going to help us. So if you do act impulsively, if you do something that's a little crazy, a little over the top, you're going to feel a little bit more optimistic and more hopeful about it. You might it might turn out all right in the end, because Jupiter does that, right? Jupiter is a great benefic, and so it's going to help us to feel better. This is a great time to reach out to people in positions of power, because they're going to be much more likely to help you, and you're going to be much more likely to achieve success with help from people who are in positions of power and authority, or from your superiors, from your bosses, that type of thing. This is just in general a really feel-good energy. People are going to feel much more optimistic, expansive. Just in general, people will feel good around this time. And so that's going to be coming exact on Thursday as well. So there's that really tense, really intense, impulsive, like I need to do something right now energy on the 5th. But then there's also an energy that's a little bit softer and a little bit easier to deal with. And then at the end of this week, you're going to be having the the sun's going to come into a trine with Neptune. And so that's going to come exact on Sunday. And so Sunday is going to be a very lazy, lackadaisical, just like chill kind of day, because we have the sun in trine with Neptune in the water signs. Neptune is a sign that's dealing with escapism, escaping from reality, right? Doing things that are extrasensory, diving into illusion, diving into fantasy, even escaping through drugs, alcohol, those types of things. If you're doing it in moderation, which I think under this energy you might be, just because it is a trine, it's a nice energy. This is a time to relax, kick back, and do whatever you need to sort of separate yourself from the world, to separate yourself from the day-to-day reality of life and, you know, the hardships that come with daily living. And the other thing that's going on is that the moon on that day will be in the sign of Taurus, which is very indulgent, which is very sensory and sensual. And so this is a really great time to kick back, to indulge, to relax. And so that's what's going on this week. And I'm going to get into the forecast for all 12 signs. I'm going to be focusing on that opposition that's going on between Mercury and Mars, because that's going to be the most intense, and it's going to be kind of the most important thing that's going on this week. It'll be felt the most, but I will talk a little bit about the trines as well, because those are important and that can help you sort of ease the burden or ease the tension if you're feeling the tension with this Mars opposition to Mercury. All right, and so now I'm going to get into your forecast for all 12 signs, and I'm going to start, of course, with Aries. And so for Aries and Aries rising, and always listen for your rising sign first, your sun sign second. You can also listen to your moon sign, but the rising sign is going to be the most accurate in terms of what's happening in physical reality. The sun sign will also be quite accurate. The moon sign is going to be a little bit more internalized. And so for Aries and Aries rising, this week you have Mars in retrograde in your 11th house. This can bring up latent frustrations, passive-aggressive energies with friends, with your social networks, the people that you surround yourself with. And so just kind of be careful about conflicts with friends and with people that you care about. Also in sort of your romantic life as well, because this opposition is happening in your 5th house and in your 11th house. And so there's a push and a pull between making decisions from a place of passion, from what you love to do, wanting to focus on your heart, on your hobbies, your interests, on the things that feel like play, wanting to develop the things that you love, right? And also wanting to account for the needs of your friends, your social networks, what they think, what they want. And there can be some conflict here. I would say that there could be disputes between romantic partners. There could be disputes between, you know, friends, your social networks, as I said before. You might want to act really impulsively on some sort of situation that might cause you to sort of have to bite your tongue because you said something that you really didn't mean. And so just be very careful and very cautious about that, especially when it comes to your social networks and your friend groups, because that's where the energy is getting a little intense for you right now. And so, you know, don't jump in right away. If your friends or invite you to something, or if there's some sort of group that you want to join or you're thinking about joining, or if there's something that you're thinking about doing involving technology, the internet, groups of people, right, humanitarian types of pursuits, take a step back and think about it. Don't jump in all quick and all crazy. If your friends offend you or if they do something that's hurtful to you, take a step back and think about what you're going to say before you say it, because you don't want to regret what you said. Those types of things are going to be coming up for you this week. The nice parts of this week for you are going to be having to do with your internal world. So your creativity, your emotional well-being, focusing on your emotions, focusing your attention inward, and acting more on intuition as opposed to impulse. That's going to be the key to navigating that energy this week. For Taurus and for Taurus rising, there's some tension or disputes mounting that have to do with your career, your public reputation, your bosses, maybe people in positions of authority, as well as your family, your roots, your home environment. Don't make any snap decisions when it comes to your family members, or changing something about your home, or changing something about your job, or, you know, arguing with a coworker. Maybe, you know, your boss makes you angry and you might want to snap back and say something real quick. That's not necessarily advisable at this time. Think before you speak. Take time, decompress. Don't just go in all impulsively, because it's going to cause you to be thinking very quickly. You're going to have a sharp tongue, and so if something rattles you the wrong way this week, especially when it comes to your home, your family, or your career and what you're doing out into the world, and it could be a conflict between home and family and career. It could be that, you know, your spouse or somebody in your home environment thinks that you're working too much, or they're complaining about something that has to do with your job, or you feel like, and it's not going to necessarily feel like your home is as like a place of solitude, and it's not going to be like a little sanctuary for you this week. It's going to be very hectic. There's a lot of hectic, very frantic energy going on when it comes to your career, your public reputation, the work that you're doing out in the world, as well as your home life, your family life. You're going to have a lot to deal with. You're going to be making a lot of decisions. You're going to be thinking and overthinking things. You're going to be jumping into all sorts of stuff later on this week. Take your time, slow down. There's no rush. When Mars is in retrograde, this is the time to envision how things are going to turn out before you actually take action. Don't just jump in. And don't allow your mind to get the best of you either, because you might be ruminating and kind of, overthinking the things that are going on in these areas. The nice areas where you're going to find some sort of rest, some sort of just good energy where things feel nice, a good space for creativity, for solitude, for taking time out, where things feel good. That's actually going to be happening in all of the social houses for you. So the 3rd, the 7th, and the 11th. So spending time communicating with other people, spending time with your loved ones, spending time with your spouse or significant other, spending time with your friends, your social networks. So spending time around people this week is going to be very fruitful. It's going to help you to tap into your intuition, into your inner guidance, and that's where you're going to feel the most ease in terms of the energy this week. For Gemini and Gemini rising, this opposition is happening in your 9th and your 3rd house. And so for you, miscommunication or sort of communicating things in a way that's very blunt, abrasive, and can rattle people the wrong way, shock people out of complacency for sure, but they might not react in the way that you want them to, or you might find yourself being very reactionary when it comes to the messages that are being delivered to you from other people. Or you might find yourself really feeling this like really frustrated energy where you really want to get away. You want to take a small trip or a long distance trip. You want to like get away from the day-to-day grind. You want to do something that's expansive, that's exciting, that's fresh, that opens your mind, that expands your horizons, that feels like an adventure. And so this can stimulate that and trigger that energy later this week. It's a good time to think about it. It's a good time to make plans in your head, to envision what you want. It's not necessarily a time to just jump in and just like leave to go somewhere, right? So take your time, think about what it is that you want, and you'll have plenty of time to take action later on. For you this week, for Geminis, the good energy is actually happening with your career, your public reputation, your financial situation is being highlighted right now, and your work situation, so your day-to-day work experience, your work routines. And so focusing on work, even though you feel like you might feel like you kind of want to get away, or you want to learn something new, do something new, jump into a new project, or jump into some sort of new coursework or something like that, the easy energy, the things that are going to work out for you a little bit more easily this week are going to be tied to more like the physical reality, your health, your work, your immediate environment, your day-to-day work experience, your day-to-day routines, your relationships with your bosses and your coworkers, and also your finances can actually benefit this week if you are focusing on your work and if you are utilizing that energy to your advantage. For Cancer and Cancer rising, there's a lot of intensity around money for you this week. There could be conflicts and disputes involving, your income or other people's money, taxes, debt, money that is sort of money that's through a partner, so like joint finances and things like that, joint bank accounts. And so you could have a dispute with your partner about money. You could have a dispute with some sort of family member. You could have a dispute over inheritance. You could just feel a lot of tension and a lot of frustration about your finances this week. And so that could cause you to take action that might not necessarily be what's best for you right now. It just might be a way of releasing that really tense, really frustrated energy, because you're going to be thinking really quickly. You're going to be ruminating on, these areas of your life, and you might want to jump in and do something new because you think this is going to fix the situation, or you think this is going to help bring in more resources for you or alleviate some sort of debt burden or something like that. I would take the time out to just reflect and don't jump in too quickly, right? So you're going to be thinking very sharply, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the decisions that you make are going to benefit you in the long run, especially with Mars being in retrograde. So just take your time. You can start making plans. You'll have a lot of ideas, write them all down, but maybe don't jump into them unless you absolutely have to, unless something very pressing comes up that you have to deal with right now. And then for Cancer and Cancer rising, there's a lot of good energy coming to you this week. I mean, you have the sun in your sign, so happy birthday, Cancers. And if your birthday is this week, you're having this grand trine activated in your solar return chart. And so that's going to be a really nice energy where things are going to be really easy for you in the areas. So the first house, the fifth house, and the ninth house, the areas that have to do with your identity, your beliefs, your inner child, the things that you love to do, your true passions, right? Because the first house is your identity out in the world. The fifth house is the things that you love to do, your hobbies, your interests, the things that you do because you're passionate about it and it's fun for you. And then the ninth house, the house of your beliefs about God, the universe, the world around you, the things that frame your reality on a day-to-day basis. And so focusing on these areas of life, focusing on building your character, on acting with integrity, focusing on you, your own self-interest, your needs, your passions, being a little selfish in that way. That's actually going to work out for you this week. So focusing on those types of things, if you're feeling a little frustrated, that's actually going to be very helpful, and that area will work out a lot better for you than some of the other areas in your chart. For Leo and Leo rising, this opposition is happening in your 7th and your 1st house, so this indicates disputes in relationships. You already have Mars retrograding in your 7th house, and so this can bring up any sort of latent aggression, any sort of grudges that you've been holding against your partner or against anyone in partnership. It doesn't have to be a romantic partner or a marriage partner. It could be any sort of long-term close relationship, like close friendship. It could be business partnerships, it could be contracts, it could be any sort of relationship where you're close with that person on a one-on-one basis, can be under the rule of the 7th house. And so there's going to be conflict in these areas. There could be conflicts involving contracts that you need to go back and revise and redo. You might feel frustrated with your partnerships. You might feel frustrated with your relationships this week. You might say something that you don't mean, and so take the time out to sort of reflect and respond instead of react. If something does come up, if there is a dispute or an argument, it's going to be fleeting. It's not going to last forever. It's just triggering it, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday especially. And so take the time to cool off, and things will actually be much better for it afterwards, especially if you don't just jump in and say something all crazy. The good energy for you this week is going to be happening in your sort of emotional houses, your hidden houses. And so following your intuition, right? So if some dispute does come up, if something pressing happens where you feel like you need to address it, you need to confront that person, use your intuition to guide you in the right direction. Allow your intuition to show you what to say, what to do, how to approach the situation, because your intuition is really strong right now. And even if it doesn't feel like it, I know Leos are a little bit more fiery, they're a little bit more passionate, they're a little bit more about like doing and taking action and that type of thing, because it is a fire sign. Your water houses are activated right now, so it is a more intuitive time for you. Take care of your emotions, spend time going inward in contemplation, spend time in solitude, and that's actually going to help you to figure things out a little bit more easily this week. For Virgo and for Virgo rising, this energy is happening in your 12th house of hidden enemies, and your 6th house of work, day-to-day experience, health, co-workers, all these types of things, your daily routines. And so there could be some sort of dispute with coworkers that comes up, and you might find that you have somebody talking behind your back or something like that. And if that's the case, take the time to figure out what you're going to do before you actually do it. Don't just jump in and react and get all angry and fight with people. If there are disputes with coworkers, it's going to be fleeting, it is going to pass, and you're going to figure out how to deal with it. It's just not going to happen all at once. And if you do just jump out and say something, it might not work to your benefit. There could also be issues that come up involving health, right, and your daily routines, and so you might have some sort of health issue that comes up, or you might I would say that you could be a little bit more accident prone this week, so just be careful. Don't rush around. Don't go crazy and just run around the house or anything like that. Don't run with scissors because you might be a little bit more accident prone this week. And so but if there's something does happen, it's usually a sign that you're internalizing something, you're internalizing some sort of anger, or there's something that you need to change and you're not really paying attention. And so I wouldn't say anything major would happen, like little cuts and bumps and scrapes and bruises. If that happens, pay attention to when and how and why and what you're thinking about at the time, because these can all be clues as to what you need to change or what you haven't been dealing with and addressing that needs to come out. And so so there could be some health stuff that you need to address, But think it through. Don't just act all impulsively. And there could be disputes with coworkers. There could be disputes in your day-to-day experience. There could be a lot of intensity. You might feel very busy this week, like you really want to just go and decompress and get away, but you have so much to do. Allow yourself that time to get away. Allow yourself that time to relax. And the best way to relax for you this week is to spend time with people. You have your communication houses, your interpersonal houses are being highlighted this week with that grand trine that's being activated. And so, communicate. Call your best friend, spend time with your marriage partner or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it is. Spend time with friends. That's actually really highlighted this whole month because you have the sun transiting your 11th house. So this is a great time to go out, spend time with your friends. That's going to help you to decompress and to feel a lot better. All right, and for Libra and Libra rising, this is happening in your 11th and 5th house. And so for you, this is another sign where you could have disputes with friends, with social networks, with groups that you're a part of. And so just be careful and be mindful. Don't just react and just say something all willy-nilly. You might offend somebody or cause some sort of issues in your friend relationships or in your friendship circles. This is also a time when you might be wanting to do more. You might be feeling compelled to act on your passions, to act on your self-interest in the things that you love to do, but there might be blockages coming from either maybe disapproval from outside sources, from your friends, your social networks, or things like that, or it just might not be the right time, or you might feel like you really need to jump forward into something this week, and that's okay. I would just say make sure that you've really thought things through before you actually act on these types of things. And so for Libra and Libra rising, even though you might feel like you really want to get away and break free and do something really romantic and spontaneous and fun and carefree, that might not work out for the best for you. This is really a good week for you to work, even if it doesn't necessarily feel like that's what you want to be doing, because you have this grand trine happening in your earth houses, so in the 2nd, in the 10th, and in the 6th house. And so the ease comes through your work. So focusing on your day-to-day work routines, focusing on your career, your public reputations, making plans for the future in that area, and focusing on ways that you can create more resources for yourself, because you have Jupiter transiting your 2nd house, so your money is probably coming in a little bit more easily than it normally does, unless you have something else going on in your chart or something else going on in your life. I would say that this is a time when you can really make strong career moves, where you could focus more on your work, and that's going to feel a lot better for you. For Scorpio and for Scorpio rising, this energy is happening in your 10th and your 4th house. So there could be some sort of frustration with your work, your career, your public reputation. There could be disputes with, bosses or people in positions of authority. There could be this need to really say something or tell somebody something, to confront somebody in a position of authority. I would say that this isn't really the time to do that. You might need to do something, right? You might need to say something, but don't do it impulsively. Make sure you've thought it through and that you really know what you want to say and how you're going to say it before you just jump in all willy-nilly. There could be disputes involving your home, your property, your family, the people that you surround yourself with in your home environment. There could be arguments with the family members. There could be arguments with the home. There could be this desire to change something with your home, your family, your property, and you might want to do it all crazy and all impulsively. I would definitely take a step back and just, contemplate and make sure that what you're doing is something that is a good idea and a good decision. And the same goes for your career, your public reputation. You might want to jump in and do something. And that's okay if you've really thought it through, and especially if it's something that you've already started on prior to Mars going in retrograde. I would say that would be okay as well. But if it's something that's brand new, that's just coming to you right now, I would say take a moment, take a breather, and then proceed. For Scorpios and Scorpio rising, focusing on your self-interest, the things that you love to do, focusing on your growth and expansion through learning, through experience, through adventure, focusing on your hobbies, your interests, your spirituality, your creativity, because those are things that Scorpio rising people tend to have hobbies that are more spiritual, more creative, more flowy, because they have Pisces, ruler of the 5th house, if you're a Scorpio rising. And focusing on your own self-interest. What is it that you want to do for yourself? Not necessarily just for your career, not for your family, not for other people, but what do you want to do for you? And think about that this week, because focusing on that's where the ease of movement, the really good energy is going to be this week, so you can actually cultivate that and do something that you love. Aligning your actions with your integrity, that's going to be much easier for you to do this week as well. And for Scorpios, you might be feeling a little bit more passive, a little bit less fiery, like you want to just kind of take a back seat and watch what's going on instead of just jumping in and doing things all Scorpio-like, and that's okay. That's going to be going on for the Mars retrograde. This is a really great time for Scorpios to sort of take a break and stop feeling like they need to be constantly doing, acting, initiating, manifesting, pushing forward, focusing really intently on that goal, because that's what Scorpios are good at, obsessing over things. This is a time to sort of take time out from that. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, this is happening in your 3rd and 9th house, and so for you, communication might be a little bit more difficult. You might have some disputes that come up in general, just in communication with other people, and so just watch your tone, watch your language. Sagittarius people, they tend to come across very blunt because they are who they are, right? Sagittarius is a sign of integrity, but it's a sign that is very much, they show up as they are. There's no hidden agendas, there's no manipulation, but one of the side effects of this is that they can come across as very blunt and a little bit tactless in their speech, and this is a time when that's going to be highlighted for you even more so. And so just make sure, maybe rehearse it, right, before you say it. Maybe run it by like a friend, a lover, a coworker, whoever, before you go in and confront somebody, or say that thing that you feel like really needs to be said because you're feeling self-righteous and angry, in Aquarius, right? But definitely take some time out before you jump in and say whatever's on your mind, especially later on this week. Also, you might feel like you want to just jump in and go on some sort of travel, some sort of adventure, start taking the initiation to take some sort of higher education. That's okay to contemplate, to rehearse these things, and if you feel like you absolutely need to do it in this moment, follow your intuition, right? Because all of the all of the fire signs right now are having this water trine activated, and so your intuition is going to be much stronger than it normally is. So just kick back and listen to yourself. Spend time in solitude and contemplation, and that's really where things are going to be working for you. Your home and family life will be working for you. The house that has to do with power, with secrets, with you're going to be feeling more empowered this week and this month as well. But joint finances, joint resources, those types of things will be going well for you, and really spending time in contemplation, your spiritual practice will be a really good place to find solace if things are getting a little dicey for you this week. But it's not anything too crazy. It is a fleeting aspect, so it won't last for long. For Capricorn and for Capricorn rising, this is happening in your 2nd and your 8th house, and so this is going to be potential for disputes involving money, finances, resources, debt, other people's money, joint finances, power struggles involving resources, and so just be mindful of that. And the other thing that's going on is you might feel like you want to do something impulsively to change the way that you create resources for yourself. So maybe getting a new job or starting some sort of new project that you think will be fruitful financially. Think it through before you jump in and do it, especially if you are not a natal Mars retrograde person. I wouldn't necessarily think that this is going to be fruitful for you in the long run, just because you have Mars retrograde in your 2nd house. And so take some time out, contemplate, rest, play things out in your head a few times before you actually jump in and react to something or do something, because you might feel a lot of tension and frustration around your finances this week, especially toward the end of this week, and there might be some changes that you need to make, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it all at once, right? So that's what's going on for Capricorn. The areas where you're going to find the good energy, the grace, the ease, the fun, the lighthearted energy, that's going to be in terms of your interpersonal relationships. So this is a good week for you for communication. This is a good week for you for creative communication, and for especially if you're like a writer or something like that. So like doing things that are creative that involve language and communication. This is a great time for you in your interpersonal relationships. So in your marriage partnerships, your romantic partnerships, any one-on-one relationships, business partnerships, all of that. And this is also a great time to spend time with friends. So for Capricorn, Capricorn rising, that's what's up. All right. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, this opposition is happening in your 1st and 7th house, And so this for you is an energy where there could be conflicts and disputes involving your relationships, especially your close personal relationships. And that includes anything from your romantic partnerships, your marriage partnerships, your one-on-one close friendships, your business partnerships, even like your client relationships. If you work one-on-one with clients, that could be involved as well. But there could be disputes in your relationships this week, and you might be saying things that you don't mean. And I think more of the hasty, sort of abrasive language and communication might be coming from the outside, actually. It might be directed more toward you, but don't react right away. If somebody says something that rubs you the wrong way, take time to think about it, to contemplate, to make sure that you calm down so you can respond rather than react. And for you, there's going to be a grand trine happening in your earth houses, so this is a great week to focus on work, on your day-to-day work routines, on your health, on your career, your public reputation, on doing things that are going to help to generate income and resources, where you can sort of funnel money into your second house, because you've had this Neptunian energy in Pisces going on for the past few years, which sort of drains your resources. It's like money just flows to your fingertips. And so with this Jupiter trine to Neptune, which has been going on all year, this is helping you to more easily manifest money, because Neptune is also a place where you can manifest money, where money flows in when you need it. And so you can have that energy highlighted this week, where money can come in a little bit more easily through the projects that you initiate. Again, though, don't initiate anything all crazy. If it's something that you've already been working on, then that's okay. If you need to reconfigure something that you've already been working on to make it work better for you, then that's okay too. Alright, so for Pisces and Pisces rising, this opposition between Mars and Mercury is happening in your 6th and 12th house. And so this is a week where you might have a lot on your mind involving your work, your coworkers. There could be disputes with coworkers. It could feel like you're very busy answering phone calls, emails, text messages. It is a holiday weekend, or a holiday week for those of us who live in the United States, and it might not feel that way for Pisces, because there's just so much that you need to do. And there could be a lot of frustration that comes out of that. There's another interesting energy going on, because Mars right now is transiting your 12th house, which is the house of hidden enemies. And so it could be that you have coworkers that are working against you, or people in your work environment, or people in general who are working against you, that are disrupting your day-to-day life and daily routines, and you're focusing on that. The thing that you should be focusing on this week, as opposed to your work, even though it'll be hard to do, you're going to be very busy, most likely, is the thing that is good to focus on this week is your own self-interest. What do you need? What do you want? What's good for you? What do you want to do because it feels good, because you love to do it, because you're passionate about it, because it feels like play? And what do you and how can you tie in your beliefs, your morals, your values, your integrity with what you're doing out in the world, with the way that you act out in the world, with your hobbies and your interests and your passions, the way that you create out in the world? Thinking about those types of things, focusing on the things that you enjoy doing. And this could be a really good time for you to take a little travel, a little trip, to get away from the daily grind, because the daily grind might be a little overwhelming this week. But other than that, you have the go-ahead to do the things that you love to do, and that's going to be where you find solace, where you find a little bit of ease, a little bit of rest, where things are working a lot better for you. Alright guys, so that was the forecast for all 12 signs. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe using the button below, and I will be back next week with another weekly forecast, and I might be back before that. I have a few things that I've been cooking up while we were on our trip, so I have a lot of ideas. So there might be more videos in between, but we'll see. So anyway, thank you so much for subscribing. Feel free to comment if you have any questions, and if you want to book a reading with me, you can always do that at PersephoneReturns.com. The link is in the description of this video below. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Bye.